Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotux. I was trying to make your name into one word. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
Great.
Yeah, thanks you everyone for joining us again on this wonderful Sunday. We had just had our show Monday, so if you missed that show, the news, I'm sure everyone who follows development of Ashes of Creation already knows, is that we can actually share some of our experience, well, all of our experiences within
Verbally.
Alpha verbally. We are not allowed to share any imagery or video. So you're going to start hearing us pull things from actual experiences as we kind of talk through shows going forward, which should be pretty cool and pretty fun. The title for today comes from Diggs. I did not have to come up with this one. A dwarf, gnome, and halfling walk into a cave, which is actually kind of a mix-up of two different things. But since we've been chatting about the dwarf issue, I'll actually leave it to you, Diggs, because you surf the forums far more than we do. So what's that about?
Right. So over the past week, there's been a major debate, mainly about within about 5 of us, about changing the base model for the dwarf, especially the Dunir, what we have in the current character creator. So there was a thread that was started asking if the dwarves are going to be beefier and wider. And my thought was, I think they won't get, I think it's unlikely they will get much wider, because that's going to start to affect how they change the armor sets that they've already created, which are specifically calibrated for each race. And if they get so wide, that's going to start negatively impacting the release schedule. So, if they get much wider, expect that to negatively impact the release schedule and there to be delays. And if there are those kind of delays, I mean, if they're willing to take those delays just to make the dwarf much wider, then they'll likely do the same for other things too. So we should expect a lot more delays, and we're already replete with delays these days. Now, one of the questions, so one of the things that was being said is that the current model that we have in the Alpha 1 preview is not a dwarf, it's a gnome or a halfling, and it's too skinny and not at all dwarf-like. So all 3 of us have been in, and I'm wondering if who agrees with that, and if we could put the the Pathfinder chart up, if that's possible, to see what Pathfinder gnomes and halflings and dwarves look like.
And again, the reason for that
compared to human
is Steven has based this off Pathfinder. So
Yep. So if Pathfinder is the foundation for this entire game, as the rule set and the world design that things kind of emerged from, then we should expect that at least some influence from Pathfinder should come through. Now, the dwarf there, that's a real beefy dwarf. We see the gnome and the halfling are very, very skinny and just like tiny little waifish childlike things. And so it doesn't really fit with any of those, though I would say it's probably fine if the dwarfs aren't just a cube of muscle with these giant, muscly tube arms and tube legs, and seemingly no neck. When I was playing, I didn't feel the dwarf was non-representative of what a dwarf would be and look like, other than maybe the fact that they do a flip when they jump, which that doesn't quite make sense. The size and the proportions and their size to mass ratio in terms of being able to hit pretty hard, I don't see any problems with that. I also kind of have a feeling that if going by Steven's statement that the character creator will be as good as, if not better than, BDO, I get the suspicion that what we're seeing right now is the default center of the road. If you have all the sliders in the middle, what a dwarf is going to look like. And then even further on that, I'm wondering if, based on the art we've seen from the Dunir versus the Nikua, if this is actually more the proportions we should expect for a Nikua, not a Dunir. So it's, there's a lot of ifs and things that haven't been explained or discussed. I don't think we really have a Dunir next to a Nikua in any live element of gameplay. They just haven't been made yet. So if there's a second shape and size of dwarf that's going to be made, I would imagine that would probably be more what we see for the Dunir, and what we're seeing right now is closer to what we would see for the Nikua.
Well, but that's not what it says in the character creator. The character creator says it's Dunir.
Right. And so that's why I'm saying maybe they're not fully settled on that, but they went with the Dunir because everyone loves Lord of the Rings and post Lord of the Rings elves, or dwarves, well, elves too. But that style, and then with the movies and the video games and all of the other post Lord of the Rings stuff, your Warhammers, your D&Ds, your Pathfinders, there's a very set expectation that the people of the mountain are just these big, burly, beefy dudes and ladies.
So why don't I we have some other images here. So this, I'm going to take off the Pathfinder. This is the Lord of the Rings. Well, Diggs, you had sent me that. I don't actually know where you
the animated
to give you an idea
with the campy songs that I absolutely love.
Yes. And then the other one you said, I think, is from D&D. So there's the sort of height chart based on that as well. Just so everyone has a sense of where all of these opinions sort of come from. I wish I had put the Warhammer one up, because that seems to be a lot of, at least in that thread on the forum, seems to be a lot of people's opinion. And just to complete, so here's Dunir, and actually I'll put up now this is concept art, but Nikua. So anyway, so that's where we're at.
Yeah. And so the Dunir that we saw for a second there, I'm not going to say they're like these hulking, beefy sort of masses, but they definitely look like a, wider, thicker, stout sort of individual. And I think part of what we're going to be seeing is the armor, and how thick that is will kind of be the thing that compensates for the bodily proportions and makes them kind of beef out and bulk out. I something that we didn't even talk about it during the pre-show, but something else that I'm wondering is how much the artists are trying to pay attention to detail on model clipping, and they want to make sure that they don't have like the arms clipping through the torso when they reach over like this, and other sorts of ugly, nasty, non-realistic sort of movements and collisions. And so by making them a little bit thinner than like your big hulking dwarf, you have a lot more room and a lot more play for all the various animations and actions they're going to be doing. So for that reason, I could see
my point.
Yep. Could see it being kind of thinner like that.
Right, and we can we might be able to get wider, but there's some point where it's going to be too wide, and they're going to have to recalibrate all of that stuff, right? That that's part of my point. I think we can get beefier. I think we can get wider. I think they're going to be up for allowing for that in the character creator. Keep in mind, this is alpha, so this isn't even necessarily their goal for what we've seen in the concept art. It's not final for what we've seen in they're still trying to get to what they've shown in the concept art. Um, so this is alpha to begin with, and we don't have all of the options that are going to be available in the final character creator. So I think we'll get beefier. I think we can get wider. My thing is just there comes a point where they can't get any wider, because if they do, they're going to have to go back and redo stuff that they've already made.
Yeah, and with the proportions we see now, there's definitely room for them to kind of
And I
squash
think,
and stretch and rescale things. But again, if we're looking at a middle of the slider dwarf, it could get a bit thicker without getting into those collision issues I was talking about with the animations.
Yeah, because you're talking
And with other
about,
interactables, boats and mounts and chairs and stuff like that.
yeah, I was gonna say it's not just the base model, but you have weapons, you have armor, you have door heights, you have all of this other asset work they've been creating with furniture, beds, with housing being such a big part of this, the mounts, the naval combat. It's just not an easy fix, as I think people would say. For me, I honestly don't care. I don't know that I would be unique or not. I pick a character and I don't put too much into what they look like. Eventually it's just the experience of playing the game. That's my sort of thing. I tend to agree with Diggs. We have been told there's going to be a very robust character creator. So I would assume, obviously, that since we're seeing one model now, it's going to be, you're going to be able to do a lot of different things: height, weight, chest, abdomen, legs, arms. So I just don't understand the fussiness about it at this stage. When we know, I will say, playing it, the only thing that did seem kind of strange to me was the facial component. The features looked a little off, but it's an alpha. We only have, we only have how many character models? 4, 5?
4.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not like we're, stuck with these. We have sliders, and this is what we're stuck with. Nobody's been able to work with sliders because we don't have them yet. So I
guess 8 if you're counting male and female variations, but they're going to be fairly close, it seems. I guess actually no. It seems like the women had a little more like chesty and like deeper cuts in their armor and stuff like that. So I guess they're still going to make the female versions a little sexier or something, but still equally armed and armored.
I also think it's funny that.
But
go ahead.
They made a poll. So
don't just say they. Specify who, because it wasn't Intrepid that made this poll. It was from the general forums. The post originated from. Let me load it here. It's take a second for some reason. It was Conrad who posted it on May 15th, edited May 21st. Their statement is, in the recent preview of Dwarves, I can remember in AOC was those weird gnomish dwarves. Any ideas of their design will get beefier and, quote, wider? Not gonna lie, the current dwarves look very lacking for a dwarf. Okay, someone requested me to post this straw poll here. Vote what you want for the dwarves. And of the results, of a meager 158 results, that's statistically insignificant for anything academic. 158 results. We get, should dwarves be changed to look more like traditional stout ones? Example, Warhammer, WoW, Lord of the Rings. And I should, once again preface, all dwarves from Lord of the Rings forward are kind of the Lord of the Rings inspired fantasy dwarf. That's what we expect to see. It's able to have change and variation. You can make your own lore. Fantasy dwarves are not real people, so you can do what you want with them. But as for the results, 66 votes, which was 41%, said yes for both dwarven races. 36%, 57 votes said yes, but only for Dunir, which, okay, fine. Nakua can be a little smaller. They're stealthy. They hunt. They probably eat more berries. 13%, almost 14%, 22 votes are indifferent. And 13 votes, about 8%, said no. And for one, I mean, you were pointing it out, Diggs. That's not really all of the choices that people maybe necessarily want to participate in the poll with. They could have had a lot more answers and different ways people could vote, but that's how they set it up. The biggest one is yes for both dwarves, then yes but only Dunir, then indifferent, then no. But again, this is 158 votes. It's not an official poll. It's kind of somebody posting with an agenda and people that are paying attention to that post jumping in on it.
Any time we talk about forums, I always remember the discussion we had with a developer many years ago on a different game we covered about how just a pain in the ass forums are, because they are not typically representative of the bulk of your player base. And the people with the minority opinions tend to be the loudest about it, which makes it look like, you glance at this, oh, everybody wants different dwarves. Well, no, it's just a group of people. But anytime we talk about the forums, anytime, and I won't say who it was because I can't remember if that was an on-cam conversation or an off-cam conversation, but just from the developer perspective, how much of a pain in the ass forums are. And this is a good example of that.
Yeah. And again, like I said at the very beginning, 158, that's not a statistically relevant poll. If we're looking at a game that wants to be having tens to hundreds of thousands, upwards of millions of people coming in on day one, that is such a small fraction of a minority of the people that will actually be playing on launch day. It's really hard to put any weight into that. Certainly if it's going to take more development time, even if it adds 1 month to the launch date, that we don't know right now, we would be committing them to that by asking this. I would still care to prevent that and not have to do it and just stay the course with what they've got, because it looks fine. It dwarfs, it's a shorter human, maybe a little thicker. It does the thing. I'm willing to say that everybody got a little skinnier and a little weaker in Sanctus. And coming back through on the other side, well, these dwarves haven't been doing their squats and their push-ups and stuff. They're not as big and burly as they were, before going to Sanctus to begin with. So that's, if you want a lore reason, that's why.
Diggs, I expected more from you on this. This has been a very...
I know, internet sucks, so... But the poll tells us that that nobody is going to play a dwarf if they don't change them. That's what the poll says.
Yeah,
right. So nobody's going to play the dwarves unless they change the base model.
I won't play a dwarf, but I don't ever play a dwarf. So
I'm definitely looking more at the Nakua more for cultural reasons. They could be any size and I'd still play them. So that part's kind of irrelevant for me. But I I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't think making them thicker is going to be an issue. And then another thing is if dwarves get armor that makes them look thicker and bulkier as you advance through the tiers and get your fancy super plated armor or your robes with all sorts of jewels and beads and things and stuff on them, they're going to get thicker anyway. Like, I think every race is going to experience that. So I wouldn't worry too much. Just get your way to max level and then get some max level gear, and suddenly you'll look like a fantasy dwarf, just like the ones in the concept art we have just above here.
The only other thing
This is why. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the only other thing I would sort of add or to this conversation, because again, honestly, I don't really care. I don't care about this sort of thing, is that everyone keeps talking about, I'm just ready for a new MMORPG, just ready for a new one. I just want a new one. I want to get my hands on something new. Yet, despite saying they want something new, there's all this comparison to what they already have. They're not making Warhammer Online. They're not making Lord of the Rings Online. You might want that. That's not what this game is. I don't know. That's the only sort of other thought that comes to my mind, and I'll shut up.
I kind of think of the shape and proportions and all the armaments of the dwarves we see in the Lord of the Rings films. And I got to say, those dudes look like they run out of breath really fast. Like, they might have a lot of burst strength to them, but it seems like with all that mass to manage and those giant pot bellies of theirs, they're certainly not jumping and flipping. They're not jumping that high. I know that much. But I think it's a little bit of a funny sort of thing to just automatically be like, these dwarves aren't dwarf enough. Make them bigger. Without seeing what the full range and scope of dwarves will actually be. Now, this might lead to a dev discussion about our perception of Ashes of Creation races based on what we've seen in other games. And I'm sure people will chime in on that. But even if they put up a poll, I don't think it would really change too much. It would just be getting feedback and seeing kind of what some people right now who are currently paying attention to the game think, which isn't representative of, like I said, the hundreds to thousands to thousands to millions of people that we would expect to play. That's so I wouldn't be too concerned with it. And again, we don't even see the full character creator. It's pick a race, pick a gender, pick one of 3 hairstyles or none, pick one of 3 beard styles or none if you're a dude. I didn't check female, so I don't know if they have another feature that you can define. And press the damn play button as soon as you come up with a clever name. That's it. So we don't see, if something, at least if not better than BDO is the target, we aren't seeing that right now. That's not the focus of Alpha 1 testing. The focus right now is getting that damn networking as tight as possible. They can't really do anything else until they've got that down, especially the changing the combat system so it's able to do more of the hybrid they were trying to do. Right now, it definitely feels like tab targeting with an optional change your aim and click to attack mode. But by and large, it still feels predominantly like a tab targeting based game. So before they can really commit to showing us anything else and doing anything else, they just need us in there hammering the servers during the test period so they can work that damn rubber banding out and get things smooth and tight enough. And if they're going to put a more action-based combat where you're able to have the fidelity to dodge and block and, parry even, that would require the latency to be completely tight and potentially even adding some sort of anticipation to enemy attacks so you can know, oh, hey, it's about to do its knockdown thing. I'll put up my shield, which there's also no shields right now, so good luck with that.
Well, actually, yeah. So we actually, since our show on Monday, we did have another brief testing phase, which was, I think the purpose was to implement a fix, or what was thought to be a fix, to the rubber banding. As you mentioned, rubber banding. I know I still had issues. They seemed less, but I could be running down a mountainside, actually either by myself, or there was a player next to me that was also running, and it was just one of those sort of kind of stop go motions. I don't know if they died or not, but
the best was sprinting with a mount and ending up in a tree. That one was my favorite from the last one.
yeah. It seemed, I don't know, it seemed, I guess, a little bit better, but it was still pretty noticeable. And it seemed like the NPCs became much more unresponsive with whatever they did. Now that might have been, I did go to a different area. So initially, the previous phase, I kind of started on the map, started and went right. So just went straight right to the portal there. And this time I decided to go as far north as I could. So I was in a different area, so I don't know if that was something that was already present. But
I was mostly in the northwest. In fact, I found a roaming quest NPC and started doing his quest line, and that was pretty fun. But it was the chargers that I found in the northwest. While nobody was there for the most part, it was very sparse, didn't really have hardly any issues with lag until they started running the server profile stuff. It seemed like the chargers, those lion-like creatures, were the ones that I could hit them from a range and, oh, I threw my weapon at you. What are you going to do? You're going to stand where you're at and swing at the air. Great. Well, I'll throw another weapon at you. Hey, you're dead because it's a powerful attack. That was really the only one that seemed fully non-responsive. Some enemies didn't do as much damage as I was expecting, especially because I was really swinging above my level 5, killing level 15s, for example. Balancing still not in, so don't worry too much about that. But there were some enemies that I get up on them with a spear and I just keep whacking them, and maybe the spear has some innate stun that we don't know about because none of the attributes are defined on equipment other than their magical properties. So there might have been some lag issues there, but for the most part, without a bunch of people around, it seemed like things were mostly running fine.
And there was one spot I ran into I ran into the, it said help on the side of the, I don't know if you saw that. There was like within the terrain, it was spelled help.
Oh, that's funny.
So obviously knew something was up. I didn't know what it was, if it was a quest or what, but so went up the side to the top and about ran head first into like some group, 15 level griffins or something up there, and I tailed ass out. But it's like, okay, clearly that was just for fun, messing with people to die. So initially my character was still under the world, and I had to actually log back in, pause for a little bit, and then popped out where I was. So I assume they have some sort of check-in just to see where your position is within the world. Yep.
There's some funky business. One player I was watching in the alpha Q&A chat, they had to full-on restart their computer before they could actually log in and get their character working and stuff. And first of all, everybody, restart your computers frequently. It's just a good idea. But other than that, no, it seems like there's still a lot of issues on different levels. There was also another comment I saw from somewhere that somebody's machine is too cool for DirectX 9, and they're having installation issues because the game seemed to want to use DirectX 9 and their system's mostly configured for DirectX 12. I think they eventually figured it out or were able to get help with it, but that's a little interesting to me. That also says one really good thing to me, though. My hardware right now runs it fine on low. I haven't really popped it back up to high to check, but the hardware I have now is basically going to be a decade old when the game releases. And the fact that it runs so well really signifies to me that they're trying to do a very wide range of hardware that can accommodate the game. They aren't going for the most beautiful photorealistic graphics the game can possibly offer, what the engine they're using can possibly offer. They're going with something that looks really good for the style, makes things very visible, but doesn't chug the system to a halt. If I get up on a large, mountaintop and start doing 360s, it doesn't slow down. I can see everything in the distance. It snaps really fast. I don't even know if there's any culling of things behind me right now. There might not even need to be. That it just runs that efficiently.
Yeah, I don't know what I've been running. I'm such a great tester. I have no clue. Now that I think about it, if I've been low setting, mid setting, high setting, I have no idea. I just press play.
It defaults to ultra, so you're playing on ultra.
Yeah, if I just press play and go. I mean, it works. It's fine. Although I should probably check that out to see if that's part of the cause of some of the issues I see.
It might be.
So talking about actually testing, Neuro, I think there were some things that we did not get to Monday that you had kind of wanted to talk about. And then there was also something I wanted to discuss. We didn't do the dev diary or the dev discussion or stream, whatever the hell they call it, from last month. And there was actually one thing I want to talk about from that. But let's go to your stuff first.
Well, I mean, order of time. Why don't we talk about that one first? Because still got plenty of time here.
Well, so the thing. I was reading through the notes because I didn't get to watch the stream. There was a question about sort of account versus account progress versus character progress. So a lot of achievements now are in various games, World of Warcraft, are sort of account, and you get benefit as an account. And the response to that was that they were basically going to leave everything probably character based. There wouldn't really be any account achievements, level achievements, which was the first part of the answer, which I think we could probably talk about. I again don't really care too much about achievements unless they give me something in the game. Otherwise, it's just another carrot to chase, really with no benefit. The part that caught my attention was then that was followed up with cosmetics are character bound when they are assigned. They might allow players to unassign them with a cooldown, but not all skins on all characters. And that kind of it caught me. It kind of was an interesting statement. When I think, okay, so my immediate thought is if I have multiple characters and you don't let me transfer the skins, so I have to purchase more than one, I guess.
Well, you wouldn't be able to purchase ones that were exclusive at a period of time. That's just not going to happen. But all of them have equivalent alternatives that you can find through gameplay that, they'll look similar enough, maybe even look better in some cases.
But I feel like if that was the plan from the get-go, that should probably... We've kind of talked about, or I have, how much I dislike their marketing when it comes to the skins in general. But I feel like that's something, if you're buying a skin, it should probably tell you, hey, you can only use this once, per account, right? One character per account. I feel like that's kind of an important...
I think that's something they're going to budge on and allow people to de-equip it from one character and put it on a different character. If there's a cooldown on that, that's fine. But
it's the ambiguity in the response. And Theodore says, that we were told early on that cosmetics would be tradable on account. But that's not the response that was given in that question. So that's what kind of threw me. That they're bound to the character, and we may allow you to reassign them to a different character. I don't like that if that is the decision. So,
if they go with like the Path of Exile model, I don't know if you can have duplicates of skins and stuff, but I know the things that you do unlock from like just playing the various seasons and completing content from it, they equip to one character at a time, but you can instantly take them off that character and put them on. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, you can go to the character that doesn't have it, try to equip it, and it'll say, so, you've already got this on such and such character. Would you like to remove it from them and pop it on you? And then you say, hell yes, thank you. That's convenient.
Which is how, in my opinion, is how it should be. Now, that's my opinion. I'm not the one paying for this. Steven is. If that's his decision, that's fine. But again, especially now when you're exchanging money, these are the finer points of their marketing around skins that I just don't really enjoy as a consumer. That would be an important piece of information, if anything, to buy more than one, right? If you really liked a skin and you
But I don't think they let you do that. I'm pretty sure you're only allowed to buy a skin once at the current time. Ember Shop might be different, but right now, for the things that you're getting in the pre-orders, you can only ever own one copy of it, and that's it. You want to own more for different characters? Spin up an alt account and throw some damn money in. And I don't really think that's their intention.
Well,
yeah,
that's just, again,
that sucks.
You know, I still, like I've always said, I also don't think it's very clear to people who are brand new that these things don't actually offer benefits. You know, the way the descriptions read, if you are new to this and you weren't paying attention to fine details, looking through Discord, you know, you might get the you might assume or get the feeling that, oh, well, this mount does something special because of how it's described.
But
I'll get
it
off.
does do something special because all endgame is looking as pretty as possible. That's truly endgame for every MMO.
My prediction.
You might think that the flavor text is true.
Yes, and that's
right.
That's
You
why
might think the flavor text.
it should be very clear. And this as well. And my prediction is that they'll let you, you know, probably swap between characters somehow. I don't even think there should be a cooldown, but that answer just sort of caught me off guard. So, anyways, moving on.
So, kind of going down the list here, they had asked for a bit of feedback, so I kind of used that as the prompt for, you know, different feedback-related subjects. So, just the ease of difficulty, ease and or difficulty of startup, installation, login, character creation, first entry into the world. Anything notable about that? For me, it's like, I'm glad that they've got a professional style launcher. I know the launchers were one of the most successful and working parts of all SOE Daybreak games. So the fact that they've got a lot of that stuff there in you know, key positions, of course they're going to have a really good launcher right off the bat. It worked. If I'm not mistaken, you guys had played before, so you probably already had it installed. Were you just able to update?
I mean, it has its quirks. So there are instances where they'll tell you, you know, if you're having a problem, you know, you're going to have to uninstall, reinstall. I've not had any major issues, and I'm trying to think back to even when we first started. I mean, this has basically been the same launcher for some time now.
Yeah.
They've upgraded it, obviously. The only thing for me is it does seem like, you know, and I have a gigabit down and like 40 megabytes up, so it's pretty fast internet. And there are times where it just really is painfully slow. And it doesn't even necessarily seem to be the downloading component, because it's downloading and then it'll pause to update or install or whatever, and then kind of go back and forth. And often when it's hanging, it really seems to be more on the actual unpacking and installing the update than the downloading component. You know, there are times, you know, I can almost any game off Steam can be downloaded within 5 minutes, but there have been times updating Ashes where I have to, you know, I'll just have to leave it sit and come back, you know, 30 minutes later, an hour later. Now it's usually always updated at that point, but it's not something, most of the time I can't sit here patiently and let it update in front of my eyes. It does seem to take too long for that.
There was one quirk about it that I really liked, is that they require all actions done with the launcher to be done as an administrator on the computer. And the reason why I love that so much is that once I pressed that install button, I knew I could just walk away, and 5 minutes later, it wasn't going to have a blocking pop-up that says, hey, Do you as an administrator give consent for this thing to be installed? Didn't have to worry about any of that. It was already set. Already had all the permissions it needed to put the dang thing in.
The only other thing at this point, and I'm sure it's just because it's early on, it does not save, your login information from session to session. Did you guys have that? I assume as well. Your password that keeps your username.
Yeah, username stays, but I'm fine with the password getting cleared. I'd imagine that's a security issue. If you don't want your kids or like your roommate or something to break the NDA for you and get you in trouble or get themselves in trouble or whatever, the fact that the password isn't just waiting there and they can just click in and get in is probably a decent deterrent.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way. For me, I don't use, I use password generators, so they're by no means things I can memorize. So it's just kind of a pain in the ass. But no, I actually didn't think about that. Diggs, anything? I can't tell if you're just being quiet or your screen's freezing, man. Can you not?
Internet might be a little chunky. One other thing I would say is when I finally got my first character into the world, I pressed the play button. I expected a long load time, so I went off and poured a drink or something. When I came back, my character was away from the portal, twitching out in the side of a building. I tried jumping a couple times, and then they died. And then my first playable experience was basically from the entry points nearest respawn. So, it happens. Whatever. So that was most of it. Then finally actually getting into the world and playing. It's like, yeah, all right, I'm playing an MMO again.
Yeah, Diggs popped away for a minute. Is he still there? Are you moving around?
Yeah.
Are you still? Oh, I hear you. Yeah, there we go.
Hear you. The screen frozen for. Oh, there you go. There you're moving.
Yeah, I mean the entry into the world's been the same. That quest, that same damn quest has been there forever. Those animated whatever things. That was from the beginning. So the spot, all of it's the same in that area.
Yeah, so that's go ahead, Diggs.
No, I just said cool.
Gotcha. So the next one down the list, the next set of topics is performance and expectation. And with that, I'm looking at did it run well or poorly on the hardware? It sounds like it ran pretty well for everyone. Server issues, I think we've been over that too. Ability to see in the distance was the one that impressed me, and I think I mentioned this on the last show and a little bit earlier on this one. I can climb to a mountaintop. I can look off. For where there's mountains, I basically see as far as until there's things blocking my line of sight at being able to see further. And towards the ocean, you see that go for a pretty decent distance. I can't tell if it has a sharp cutoff where the skybox is at, or if they've just got it procedurally generated. As far as the eye can see, it's really not difficult to do it either way. But again, that there was no latency with it. There was no hardware slowdown. There were no problems with that. It is, as he said, if you can see a place in the world, you can go there, minus the stuff that's blocked off by the corruption wall. And I really wanted to take a look at not Mount Doom, but their volcano you can get some decent distant shots at. But the closer you get, the harder it is to actually get a good look at it. And I think they might do that intentionally.
Well, and so yeah, it works so well. I did not know the corruption wall existed until recently. Just starting to run one direction, and you get so used to seeing everything, and just I'm gonna go that way. I'm gonna, and then all of a sudden, the corruption wall appears out of nowhere. That's not something you see a distance off, but it's just all of a sudden there's a big thing of red. Can't go any further, which was not not fun, but no, I have had no issues either with seeing where you want to go and then just going there, which is pretty cool. Especially coming from, growing up in EverQuest, right? So where everything is a load, the imaginary lines that you get used to, well, really anything.
That is something else that I really appreciate, is that there's not cold, hard cuts between zones. It's very nice, smooth transitions from one environment to the next. It felt a lot more natural than I see in a lot of games, MMO or otherwise. So I really, really appreciated that.
What was natural? Like the biomes?
Yeah, like the transition from one biome to the next, what animals you see, what plants you see, the way that the ground is shaped in those areas.
I mean, and granted, this is still alpha. To me, it still seemed pretty jarring, the transition from one to the other.
Okay. Well,
Running. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I mean, it's not like you spend, 5 minutes running in a area that's just gradually changing. It tends to be but it's small space, right? So again, alpha, I'm sure as they grow the world, things change. That'll change.
It definitely didn't feel like World of Warcraft. It's like, all right, you're in Horde Land. Okay, now exiting Horde Land into Neutralsville. It felt like there is at least some natural sort of progression from one area to the next. So maybe still a little sharp. Again, it is a small area they're working with and trying to represent a lot in it.
I'm going to try as hard as I can. When they first released their map, there's a section, and I wish I had that and I could put it up here. There's a section that's like frozen ocean, but if you go like due west, I guess there's nothing frozen at all for a little. It's this really weird sort of area that you wouldn't think in a normal sphere world would be frozen. I really want to get there. I want to go see why it's like that. People keep saying fantasy.
I don't think we actually see like polar ice caps though on that map. I don't know if it actually extends all the way because it's a rectangular map.
I don't. I'd have to go back and look, but I just remember distinctly the position because it wasn't even necessarily trivial. It was like everything around it was not frozen. So I'm really curious. Like, is there a lore reason why? I want to go and look. I don't know if I'll be able to get there, but I'm sure as hell going to try. Actually, no. First, the first thing we all have to do is rush to get land. So after we all try to stake our freehold, because that's what everyone's going to do, is first thing we got to do is figure out where the nodes are growing, because everybody needs to get a piece of land. What? Why are you shaking your head, Diggs?
Because you've got to get to village stage, I think, before you can set a freehold.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's going to be trying to, okay, what is near me that's about to go forward so I can get that piece of land.
I don't think the game is going to start day one with everything just being a little camp you have to build up, though. That seems a little unreasonable. At the very least, I could see them taking like a snapshot of the end of beta or something and kind of basing it on that. But I don't know if this is the only portal we come into the world at either. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of them, because if this is just like, here's where you come in and that's it, it's going to take a long time for people to go across the world, and be really silly for them to go all the way across. And what was that?
Yeah, no, it's four racial portals. There's
okay.
4.
So that's definitely a lot more workable. And then that's kind of interesting, because it kind of makes it seem like you're only going to see predominantly those races in that sort of starting area.
Any race at any portal. Any race at any portal.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Was that on one of the live streams?
Somewhere. It was a while ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, we'll answer questions about the game, sure. Referring to chat there.
This is all brand new to us. Up until Monday,
Yeah.
we couldn't say a damn thing. So yeah, I still feel like Steven is watching somewhere, and intrepid police are going to show up and yank my alpha access. But
So the next set of subjects was new / returning user experience of gameplay. What do you guys think of the UI and interface in general? Because it seems to be pretty solid to me.
I mean, to be
I could
brutal,
always ask for more detail, but
again, the mini map sucks. The automatic
Minimap sucks.
The automatic opening of the map when you want to look at a quest text also annoys the hell out of me. The E button just doesn't feel right in a lot of instances. It can work. I'm not saying it can't work. I mean, that's how a lot of games are now. To interact. We kind of talked about that Monday. The looting just drives me nuts with how you have to hold down the E. One, it's just not, you have to be like right on it to get the prompt. But two, just the fact that I have to hold down the E key to loot something.
You had to hold it. I would just press it and it would charge up the timer.
Well, either way, the fact that there's a timer like that drives me nuts. The rest seemed, pretty good to me. It's pretty minimal. To get into some of the other game screens, it's just the spaghetti, I forget what it's referred to in CSS, the spaghetti bar, to open everything up. I mean, that is, I think, exactly how it should be. The quest journal type thing on the side, it would shut every once in a while on its own. I don't know if that's intentional or what, if that was me doing something wrong. But that also would, I kind of like keeping it open on the side. But the mini map, the large map constantly opening with the quest journal, and the E button are probably my three biggest complaints about the UI. The rest seems to work pretty well. We don't have access to some of it, obviously, with the talents and things. But and luckily, I think my three complaints are probably fairly easily fixable. I mean, it's doesn't seem like it would be overly complicated. So, Diggs? All right.
Any other? Okay. So we've kind of talked about the state of gameplay already. I think we've already kind of covered the state of questing, which is, yes, there's quests. Yes, there's quests that have multiple steps to them. Yes, they give a fair amount of experience, which can be faster than just killing things to level up. It's an MMO. That's what to expect. They're well written. I like that. Next would be the variety of playable classes. You get, the basics. You get your tank, your nuker, and your healer. By and large, one of them has a heal. One of them doesn't have as much of a ranged emphasis, but they all feel so very similar that it would be hard for me to see what we have right now and say, I'm definitely going to play a this, or I'm definitely going to play a that. It's absolutely not at this point. It's nice to have the variation and see what the variation's like. For example, the quest to go into the abandoned temple, and you have a different quest depending on what your class is. That's cool.
Yeah, and they even call it tank healer and what's the other? But for
tank,
those
mage, and cleric.
Yeah, there's not. I did actually go back and do some of the other classes. The mage seemed okay. I definitely liked the healer from the sort of solo play standpoint. The sort of time to kill seemed the same for both. There did not seem to be any sort of edge speed-wise with killing things as a mage versus a cleric. And then you obviously, with that, you get the self-heals and self-mana regen as well. So it just sort of makes sense to, soloing-wise, to play the cleric. And we'll eventually get to see more. For those who haven't heard, I was about to say haven't seen. You don't get to see it. The only thing we have access to from a testing standpoint are the sort of a few of the active abilities. Passive abilities aren't in right now, and the level cap kind of prevents us from filling up the active abilities as well. So, we don't have a lot of experience yet with the different varieties. There's certainly no secondary, classes or anything like that. It literally is a mage, tank, and healer. I mean, those are the three things we have access to. Which I think, you can say it's alpha. Yeah. We shouldn't expect to have more. My poor little heart, though, thinks if we don't even have some other classes at this point, it's going to be for freaking ever until I get to see crafting. But
yeah, the state of crafting right now is we put a system in, it doesn't fully work. We're missing some recipes, we're missing some steps. It's really hard to tell what you've actually crafted. They've got some work to do on that, of course. And I think there was also another issue where certain crafted items would bug out your character, so don't even equip crafted items.
I'm curious. I see the chat going on about experience that. I'm kind of curious how everyone, now obviously, again, alpha, so keeping that in mind, that, balancing and all of that sort of thing is not obviously in there. The leveling process did seem very slow, especially for when they're wanting to test, multiple levels.
Really? It seems slow to you?
Compared to other modern MMORPGs, yes.
If you hit all the quests and punch above your level, you level pretty quickly.
Yeah, the problem was no quests.
Well, that might be part of my perception. Yeah, I mean, it is just basically pounding face, and that's about it.
But with that, I got it down to the point where I was punching high enough above my level. About every 20 kills would get me another level up, and that's really not a lot. That was playing as a one of the human classes or races as a tank, and just tee him up, kill him, get my experience, maybe rest and recover before the next one. Just keep it going. Can kill him as I travel.
So this question, is there a expected release date? Per Kickstarter, it was in the fall of 2018.
What?
Yeah, when you look at the expected delivery date, it was, I don't remember the month. That's why I said fall. Yeah, we talked kind of on this on Monday too. Obviously it's opinion wise at this point. No one has said anything official as far as target release dates, and certainly when we're having, very, very, very frequent setbacks of just getting to alpha, I would not take anything anyone says as any sort of truth behind it. My opinion on that, based off what we've seen, where things are at, the earliest I would imagine, and this would be with them, completing their hires, which has been challenging for them to get all their positions filled. Assuming they get all of those things filled and they actually start entering their testing phases as they want, I would say the absolute earliest is probably in 2 years. So probably 2023. But my honest opinion, I guess, well, that's my opinion. I would say probably even longer than that. I hope not. You never know until when they hit full staffing and everything, what they'll be able to do. And we don't know kind of what they do have just from a content perspective either. I mean, while they're trying to fill up all these other holes, networking being the biggest issue right now, I mean, they could have tens of thousands of pieces of in-game, items and other things already set to go. They could have all of these, all these other character races. That poll could have been freaking meaningless because they already have all that shit fixed. We just don't know. And there's no reason for them to put it in right now. Their sole testing right now is basically stability. Right? So there's no reason.
Dominantly stability.
Yeah, there's no real
I think it's
reason.
stability plus making sure all the basic systems work with the current netcode that they're using.
Yeah,
So you can't, dupe items by dropping one on the ground and then picking it up and clicking your hotbar at the same time, like in original Diablo.
But I would say probably 2 years if everything goes perfectly from here on out. But perfectly will be determined come July. What is it, 7th, or whenever it is that we're supposed to enter in. Then I think we'll actually probably have a much better idea of the 2-year mark come that first week or two of July. If they come back and say, well, things aren't quite right, aren't ready, we're going to wait until August or September. I mean, that to me starts putting up a little bit of flags and concerns that I'm not going to really bring up now, but at that point it would be like the 3rd or 4th delay just to get to an alpha state.
That happens.
Yeah, it does, but we know it's networking, and we know that they're open positions, or at least I think one of you said on Monday that of their open positions, a couple of them are still for networking jobs.
Yeah, the top 3 out of 4 were networking related.
So they're trying to solve a massive issue, and it sounds like they don't have necessarily the staff they would like to have to help solve that issue, which is probably why we're having these delays occurring. But so we'll see. 2 years from now, so that would put us at a 6-year development. No, 9. Oh hell, my math isn't working. 7-year. It's 2016, I think, was when they first sort of entered into this. The end of 2015 to 2016 is when it became known. So 7 years for something like this probably is on target, I'd say.
Yeah, they've added another role since then to what's on the top of the list, but they still have cloud security engineer, network administrator, and Unreal network engineer as positions they're hiring for. And it may be that they're hiring more than one person for each of those positions, and they've got one, but they want to get more people so they can get more of the work done faster.
Yeah. So like I said, we don't.
I guess I want to say with that, we'll see how much of the current careers page gets depleted after the job fair coming up in late June, early July, or whenever they're planning to have that.
Yeah, so like I said, hopefully while they've been doing all this, the content stuff is just piling up, and they'll just be able to plug that all in pretty quickly once they solve some of the networking issues. So. What else? Oh, it's after 9. I didn't even realize that.
Well, I mean, if you're good to keep going, I'm good to keep going.
I got a few minutes.
Yep.
So, what did they say max level was? Was that like a 50 or a 60? Right now, it's only 10.
50.
So, I would imagine with expansions and other stuff, it can slowly creep up to higher and higher levels, and that's fine.
No, it's not, but okay.
Well, it may or may not be, I suppose.
Whole different discussion.
Yeah, that's true. So other sorts of things. We talked about the classes. We talked about the variety of regions to visit. Just the overall aesthetic and art appeal. Do you think the game looks good? It doesn't need to look perfect. It doesn't need to look finished, but does it at least look good? Comparing to other MMOs and other games out there right now.
It looks pretty good.
I really do. I've said this on Monday. I get these really big feels of sort of a mix of Lineage 2 and EverQuest 2. I don't know what it is, if it's the character positioning as I'm moving. The EverQuest 2 kind of makes sense because they have so many developers and people, artists from Sony. But I really do get that sort of feel. It looks decent. I don't have any complaints for an alpha game. Now as it started off with basically just artists, it better look pretty good when we get to certain phases of it. But as an alpha, it looks okay. The thing that that I do. And I'm curious your opinions. When I sprint, you get the lines, and I don't feel like I'm moving any faster. Is that just me?
No, I definitely see the character increasing in pace. They're not just lines that come up. The thing that bothers me is that there's no indication of how long I get to sprint before it goes on some sort of sprint cooldown or what's going on with that. Sometimes I'd press sprint, and just so long as I don't mess with anything, I'm sprinting for a while. And sometimes I'd press it, and 2 seconds later, it's unsprinting. I got to press sprint again, shift again to sprint, and then a couple seconds later, it disengages. It's like there's a stamina bar that's just missing right now. At least with the mounts, you get a cooldown. You can see when the ability is ready again. But I don't really get any indication. Oh, and speaking of that, one of the icons I definitely hope they change, because it's a counterclockwise cooldown timer, and one of the abilities for the tank, about 2/3 of it, I would say, is shaded in the area where the cooldown timer's at. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly where it's at unless you're looking at it specifically. And if you're looking at the buttons, you aren't looking at the battle. So that's one that I hope they'll kind of refine a little bit. So primary gameplay activities. What did everyone do? My first time I was doing questing. My second time on Wednesday, I was specifically just exploring. I did a few quests, but it was mostly getting around and seeing the world.
Yeah, that was me too. That's all I did the first time.
Thursday, right? Not Wednesday.
Find fucking Zemes.
Cave, and they weren't even there.
I was in the cave. Oh,
the asset was gone.
But at least I know where she's supposed to be.
Yeah, so that's one that really bothers me.
That's in our title, and we never actually even talked about the cave. Why that's in the title for the show? It's because Diggs was having a fit trying to find this person, and at the end of the day, it turns out I think they just removed all the NPCs, right?
Or at least some stuff in that area. This wasn't even an NPC. So the way the quest goes, you talk to the person at the second camp where you ferry supplies to, and they say, golly gee, we sent out some privates to check out this cave. You want to go check on them for me? And then you go in the cave, and then you go completely past the first interactable because it just looks like a dead art asset on the ground, just a dead person on the ground. You go down and you look around and you see this dude who's tripping balls because he's got all sorts of nasty spider poison in him. He's like, whoa. It won't really tell you what's going on until you eventually ask someone, where the hell is Mankirk's wife? And when you go up the ramp and finally interact with that corpse that you just walked right by, because there's no indicator on it, you just have to know to stand there and press E. Then after you've done that, you can tell the dude down there, yo, Mankirk's wife is dead. We'll send help for you. And he's like, golly gee, that sounds like a great idea. Here, I'm going to cast haste on you. You get to run faster for a few minutes. Now go run for help and save me.
I just thought it was freaking hilarious that you guys, Diggs spent hours or however long you were chatting about it, looking for this character dead on the ground.
2 hours, probably.
I went through the cave 3 full times around every surface, perimeter, and interior area, up and down, because I was expecting something with a little bit more visibility than, there's a asset of a dead body, just like there's assets of dead bodies all over the place.
I just thought it was hilarious because at the end of the day, he went, "Oh yeah, it's not there anymore."
He showed me a screenshot of it, and it's like, "Oh yeah, no, there's supposed to be a body right there. Here, let me circle it."
But it's not.
I was pretty sure it might not be there, but I just wanted to know where. That's it. So next time, when people are looking, I can be there and say, that's where it is. Go there. People are always looking for it.
Acid Alex, I should say right now, there's 3 kinds of drops. There's the low tier, sell me for 2 gold. The mid tier, sell me for 4 gold. And the high tier, sell me for 0 gold because I'm only used for launching caravans. That's it. That's the only drops you'll ever find right now. It's a little weird. And you don't even find multiples of them. You'll only ever find one on each corpse if you even find one to begin with. Not everything drops stuff. So that's kind of the state of the game economy right now.
Long term though, yeah. So raids, the most powerful items will be found in raids. World raids, group content. That goes for crafting as well. There'll be things that get dropped that crafters can use as well. Now we've been told that crafters will be able to craft things on par with the best dropped loot there is. Now we don't know anything about that. Will that still take loot dropped from the raid boss anyways? So you're crafting, somebody gets a sword, but you still have to get a piece from that raid boss as well in order to craft something equivalent to the sword. We don't exactly know how that will work. I don't think just
could also be a rarity thing. There's one enchanted mithril node anywhere in the world, and if you're so lucky to find it, and you're so lucky to also be a miner who can mine it, and it doesn't raise a quest flag for people to hunt you down, and you actually get back to town and stash it in your freehold, well, great. Now you've got something of epic quality that you can use to make part of a legendary weapon. You might still need a couple other high quality components. And I have no idea how modular their crafting system is going to be, if everything's a fixed recipe or if you can swap in different materials to get better results.
The goal will be much like EverQuest's next vision, which I don't know how many people actually paid attention to that. That's what we started with so many years ago. One of the tenets was that crafters really make the world go round, basically, that they're a big part of any sort of MMORPG. So that is exactly what you'll see here. And there's some comments in there about, a lot of the drops being materials. So, you'll definitely need to love your crafter friends, or make sure there are several of them in your guild, because they'll be very much needed. I personally actually have very limited to no plans on any sort of combat. I'm sure there will be instances where I'll have to participate in a siege or something like that in order to save my freehold. But other than that, I really don't plan on pursuing any sort of combat role within Ashes, and which I think is a pretty cool thing that you're able to do that. There's not many games that allow you that sort of freedom. So, there are super rare things. Flying mounts is something that gets asked about sometimes. That will be super rare. And that will be very limited.
That's kings and queens only, of which there's just a few per server.
So you'll definitely have some items like that you literally will have a handful of people on your server that have them at any one time.
Now, they said there will be gliding mounts, so if you like being like a flying squirrel and you get really high up and then dive and glide down, just with that, I'm kind of hoping that there will be non-mount devices like a hang glider that gives you a little bit more lift and a little more direction to it, perhaps. But flying mounts is flying mounts, and that's how they work. Or the gliding mounts. It's good enough, I guess, if you're just trying to siege an area.
Cross character bank. Will there be a cross character bank on it?
So.
Yeah, I don't know that they specifically have said anything about that yet, but yeah, I agree with Diggs. Everything we've been told is basically your characters will exist on their own. Their rewards, their stuff is for them and not any other character. I'm sure, obviously there'll be ways around that. If you have a friend, say, hey, I'm going to drop, hold this for me, which is a little less secure. Or you can just have a second account, but I'll probably end up with a second account at some point. Maybe not. It's going to be hard to pay for a monthly fee when I have a first account that won't have that. So.
Gotcha. I guess things are getting a little darker because the sun's kind of moving along over there. I didn't realize, I didn't turn a light on. It's just Neuro in the dark. Neuro in the dark. Yeah.
Yep. So I think, we're a good 20 minutes over. So for those that are new to our show, we typically will go for about an hour. So 9 Eastern to 9 to 10 Eastern, or 6 to 7 Pacific typically. So I expect we'll go over a little bit more now that we can talk more about the actual content of the game. But that being said, I have to work tomorrow. So I think this is probably where we will end for the night. So we appreciate everyone showing up and asking questions as well. Like I said, now we can talk about our actual experiences, so we can hopefully provide more meaningful answers to those questions. So we will be back next Sunday. When is the next? Actually, yeah, we will have a new.
Every Wednesday.
Yeah, we will have a new. Well, so yeah, we did mention that. So testing will now happen on every Wednesday. So they are going to do that much more frequent, which I think is a good thing. And then also the next dev stream is it the 29th?
Friday,
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's usually the last Friday of the month.
So we'll have even more stuff to talk about. And actually, I'm curious to see how our opinions are formed of their live streams, actually knowing what we know from playing the games. But we'll get to experience that next Sunday. So everyone have a great week, and we will see you back here in 7 days.
Yep.
See you.